Have you ever done boomerang boundaries? And by that I mean the types of boundaries that you set and then a few weeks or a few months later, you just kind of let that boundary drop because you started to question whether or not you did the right thing. Maybe you were the one in the wrong, and all those kinds of guilt things that come up. And there are three things that I often apply to my setting boundaries. And believe me, I have done a lot of boomerang boundaries, and I've done it even recently in the last few months. But I am learning, slow learner, but I'm learning. And I guess the first one is to look at what is the pattern? Like, is there a pattern over a series of weeks or months or year where, you might have some good interactions, but there are always some where it just seems like there's a little bit of a resentment or, an undermining or something that just doesn't seem right, and it just doesn't feel right. And you think that it may not be a relationship or a situation that it's probably a good, healthy, and worthwhile thing to spend a lot of time in. And so, it's looking at those patterns. The second one is to look at how do you feel? How do you feel when you're around that person? Now, we're often told to not trust our emotions, but there's a lot of science now that talks about the vibrations that go out from our heart and our brain actually do pick up signals from that other person. So there may be a person who is speaking very friendly to you, the words are very supportive, but you just get this sense that there's something not right. And that happened to me with a person that I've known for a couple of years. And, they'd sometimes say really supportive words, but, my gut was always saying something doesn't seem right here. And then sometimes they'd say these really sarcastic comments that were just, really undermining or just kind of, trying to compete with me. And it was like, I don't know that I really want to necessarily be involved with that person or have a lot of contact with that person anymore. But it took me a long time, and I would do the boomerang boundaries. I'd set a boundary, and then I'd kind of go back and I'd support them. I'd support their business and purchase some of their services. And then it was just there just seemed to be something there that made me think this is not right. But it took me I had to get this huge strong message from the universe to say, Linda, you've done everything you can. You are actually, you're reading it right. And so really, set the boundary. And the third one is feeling guilty. Sometimes you can feel guilty. And when you set boundaries with people, sometimes what can happen is they sense that you set the boundaries. They sense that you're being firm with them. And they'll come back being as nice as they can to you. And this happened with this person. And they'll be really supportive and all that stuff. But then, you still know that there's just something that seems insincere in that. And I think one of the other things that can happen is there may be, especially on social media, there may be, a few other people go, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, you're so amazing. And this is happening with this person that I've set boundaries with. And so for a moment I thought, oh, maybe I'm reading it wrong. But then I thought, no. My relationship with that person has been that for some reason they've had some resentment or some competitiveness or something that just makes our interactions, even when they seem friendly, there's something wrong and there's some undercurrent there that I'm no longer going to be part of. And so it's really important to be sure that it's not a false guilt. What I also did was I checked in with a friend who is very honest with me, but who, understands she's very insightful about things. And when I shared with her my experience, and I said, I'm thinking about purchasing one more service from that person. And my friend said, absolutely not. Don't you see the pattern here? You need to just set the boundaries and just say, end of story. And so that was really helpful because sometimes you kind of keep, second guessing yourself. So if you do ever set boomerang boundaries, first of all, don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you're being a weak person. I think most of us do set boomerang boundaries from time to time, but just learn from it. Think about, okay, what is the pattern? What do I feel? Do I sense something not quite right? And am I feeling guilty, and is it false guilt? And I think what you'll find is as you start to set boundaries more and more, you'll find it becomes easier. And as you set boundaries and release that person, release that situation, you'll have such a sense of freedom, and you create room for more appropriate people to come into your life.